The MLS is back, but the Cup is not. And to make matters worse for FC Cincinnati fans like myself, we woke up to the news that Boreal was officially leaving on loan. And yes, I'm not a glory hunter. Here's a picture from 2 seasons ago when we won the wooden spoon, and I was in attendance when the spoon was passed around that day. Anyway, now it's time for my MLS predictions. And no, my predictions doesn't only consist of FCC winning the Cup, though it may. I will be using our generation's definitive way of ranking anything, a tier list. Bang, there it is. My tier list consists of 6 levels, relegation if it only existed, which is a topic for a different day. Not looking good, meh, good, contenders, and finally winning the league. And yes, Cincinnati is in the top tier, but I will justify it. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to go in depth into the teams in the bottom 3 tiers and plan to primarily focus on those most near the top. A lot of the teams in the bottom 2 tiers, especially, failed to really strengthen in a way that would see them move up in their respective conference and show any real improvement on the mediocre finishes last season. Some teams, such as the San Jose Earthquakes, lost their bright spot and young up-and-comers, which in their case was Cade Cowell to Liga MX, who only just recently got his first goal in the league. A lot of the struggles in the lower tiers comes from mismanagement and a lack of real investment from owners, and without any real substantial youth talent, this makes any real improvement season to season very difficult. Now that the bottom tiers are discussed, I will now move on to the meh tier. Most of the teams in the meh tier are simply lacking real squad depth and difference makers who can influence their season enough to see them jump the teams above them in their respective conference. One team that could potentially go lower by next season if they don't make any huge signings is Portland, who have an entirely different core of players from their winning days, and most notably lost club legend Sebastian Blanco to Argentine club San Lorenzo. Portland is a team that this season could push for playoffs if things go well, but if they go poorly, they could fall as low as 10th to 12th region in the Western Conference. Now into the good section. Nashville is the lowest ranked team in this section, as they haven't really made any major signings, but they have a strong defense in Mukhtar, which on its own gives them enough strength to give them a shot. Given their style of soccer, they could be a team who shocks everyone and finishes in the higher playoff spots, but I will predict they will fall 7th or 8th and just make the playoffs. The Dynamo have also not done a ton in the offseason, but as we saw last year in the Cup win and in the playoffs, Ben Olsen's side is a super solid team. They finished 4th last year, and I would expect a lot of the same. Now on to the Union, who helped furnish FC Cincinnati's rebuild, who finished 4th in last year's playoffs. Jim Curtin's side is super sound, and you always know what you will get with them. One of the most important pieces of business was keeping Kai Wagner around to help shore up their defense going into this season. Now on to the Revolution. They're a lot of the same, although most pundits have them in the 8th and lower range. I think they will make the playoffs and be fine. Gill's enough to create for the team, but where they will really lack is a prolific goal scorer with the departure of Bo. Now onto the Galaxy, who recently performed really well against Inter Miami, who have lost Douglas Costa, but I think they will be A-OK and make the playoffs. Atlanta United, they have Thiago Almada, which was a huge retention for them this offseason. I figured he would go somewhere in Europe, but that did not happen, luckily for ATL fans. I think they could easily push 4th in the Eastern Conference, although I do think the teams above them in the East are simply better. My 3 contenders consist of FC Dallas, LAFC, and Orlando City. Orlando was strong last year, and I think they will only improve. I think LAFC, we all know how good they are year in, year out. This is a super solid side. Carlos Vela is phenomenal and can change a game. And while the side did lose important players like Acosta and Chiellini, I think the addition of Hugo Lloris will be a huge help in the dressing room this year. I could easily see LAFC competing at the top along with the Seattle Sounders to fight for a potential spot in the MLS Cup this year. Now on to the big boys, the league winners clubs. First, Columbus Crew, they won it last year. No surprise they're back again. Cucho leads this squad. They're very good, and even as a Cincinnati fan, you have to admit, super sound setup, and they could easily be back in the Cup next year. Finally, my top 2 teams are FC Cincinnati and Miami. Obviously, we know Miami are assembling the Avengers and trying to walk the MLS, but so far they've played 2 games this year, and both resulted in a draw, and they barely scraped a draw against the Galaxy thanks to a late tying goal from Lionel Messi. That being said, between the top 3, if I was betting, I would pick between the 2 teams of Columbus and Cincinnati because of Miami's squad age. I don't see them staying healthy over what could potentially be a 60-game season. That being said, I've got to back my boys, and even though Boreal left, I think Noonan can keep us rolling and potentially even winning the cup this season. Am I crazy? Maybe, but we'll see what happens.